Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to Fronteras at Changing America. I'm Anthony Moreno. Today we continue our education series with the help of the Las Cruces League of Women Voters and coordination with the Las Cruces Public Schools. The Dual Language program in Las Cruces Public Schools teaches students to strive for success in the classroom while learning a second language so they can compete in today's global environment. Please welcome Mari Rincon, Coordinator for the Dual Language and Migrant Education for Las Cruces Public Schools. And joining her is Kathy Norris. Kathy is principal with Fairacres Elementary, a school that takes part in the program. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Mari, I'd like to start with you. Could you tell us a little bit about the program and how long it's been around in the district?
So we're talking about dual language, multi-age, and the idea was born basically from our superintendent, Mr. Stan Rounds, and Dr. Steven Sanchez. We've had the idea of dual language multi-age for a long time at another school, but as far as the dual language as we know it in the two schools that we'll be talking about today, we've had the program for 2 years now. This is going to be going into our second year.
So exactly what is the mission of the program? If you could talk a little bit more at length about that and what ages does it reach?
So the multi-age program, the goal is to get every student to be bilingual and biliterate in 2 languages. In this case, it's in English and in Spanish. And the program itself is offered to students from kinder through 5th grade, and it is divided into 2 sections. So the first section is K2, which is kindergarten students through 2nd grade, and then the second section is from 3rd grade through 5th grade.
3rd through 5th grade? Okay.
Right.
Kathy, what type of impact have you seen that this program's had on your elementary school?
The blessing of this program is that in our school we only have a few students who require Spanish instruction. That is their first language, and that's what they need to be instructed with in reading. And to provide them the instruction in Spanish, we had to take them out of the regular setting and pull them into a different class. The beauty of this program is that the students stay in the same class all day long with 3rd, 4th, and 5th, or kinder, 1st, and 2nd, and they're enriched in both languages. And it benefits them because it makes their learning rich. It engages them all day long in both languages. It makes them feel that their culture is worthwhile. Their culture and their learning, we celebrate it in Spanish and in English.
Now, have you seen the impact that it's had on the students within your school that are going there in this program, with each other through the program?
The nice thing is that the teacher is able to bring in their interests, their learning styles. The older children become leaders. If a student is lacking in some skills, even though they're a 2nd grader, they can get their instruction in a 1st grade level, or a kindergartner who needs some enrichment because their skills are stronger. So even though they're kinder, 1st, and 2nd, they can be instructed on whatever level they need to be in both languages.
Mari, what is it about this program's design that is kind of different than what we know of typical bilingual programs? What really makes this program unique?
So in a traditional bilingual program, what you have is, a grade level. So all students, for instance, in 1st grade are getting the standards for 1st grade, and the teacher is focused on that specific grade level. In the multi-age, however, the shift is a little bit more on the students, the whole student. Students actually get to work. It really is more like a real world situation where you get to work with different age groups. The students mentor one another. So the younger students learn from the older students, and then the older students in turn also learn to work with the younger students. So you get less bullying, you get just fewer issues with the diversity that you have within the classroom. So it is just a nice blend of skills, and like Kathy just said, the leadership skills that they develop, and the working relationships, the community they develop. It is just, it mirrors more of the real world, situation that we typically walk out into.
So this program is also at Fairacres and what other school?
Desert Hills Elementary.
Desert Hills Elementary in Las Cruces Public Schools.
Right.
What is it like to get into this program? What's the process?
So typically, and Kathy can elaborate on it, but typically what happens is because the program is young, we've had parents sign up for the program if they're interested in their children getting the dual language experience in these two schools. So they sign up, and then because we have a few slots dedicated to the classrooms, we don't want them to be too large, and we want for the classes to be balanced. So for example, we want more or less an equal number of students. If we're gonna do the K2, we want, say, 6 kindergarten students, 6 first grade students, and 6 second grade students, so to speak, just to balance it out. And then once the parents sign up for the program, there's a lottery. If the parents, if they get in, they get notified, and their child gets to be in there with the students. Additionally, if the children are, if they speak Spanish, if that's their native language, they get the priority. So they get to be in this program, and then they in turn get to enrich, so to speak. It's a two-way enrichment program where the students who are monolingual Spanish speakers get to work with students who are monolingual English speakers, and they support each other in learning both languages that way.
Now, as far as languages go, is Spanish the main language that this is focused on, or are there any other languages?
Right now, all we have is English and Spanish.
Okay.
For the program.
Now, as far as this program goes, have you seen how it's changed the learning environment in your elementary school?
You hear stories about education is becoming dull and predictable, and the students sit in their desk and all we do is test and test and test. This is it's a breath of fresh air. The students come in and they are engaged all day long. They're working with each other in small groups. They're working with the teacher in small groups. They're keeping writing journals, and they're manipulating items, and they have technology through the Promethean board and the iPads. And
The Promethean board, you mean like the electronic board? That
yes.
It looks like a giant computer screen almost.
That's it, yeah,
Okay.
and they can manipulate it. And so, and the students aren't just sitting facing the teacher, the old Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. The kids are engaged in doing most of the work while the teacher's there to support them.
So as far as this program goes, you have a lot of cooperation not only from within the students in the classroom. I'm a little curious, what is it like with the parents? How much of parental buy-in do you need to have to make this program a success?
Yeah.
So what we did before we even started the program is we went ahead and surveyed the parents in both schools, in both communities. And what we found is that the parents are very much in favor of this type of program. One of the reasons is because we live in Las Cruces. So we have a lot of Spanish-speaking students, and we have a lot of parents who strongly support bilingual education. They believe their children should have the benefit of speaking 2 languages, and they want that access. And so what we saw was an overwhelming, positive response to the survey. We asked them, for instance, as far as on a scale, say from 1 through 10, whether they would like the program to be in their school. And so they had a lot of opportunities to rate, how they would feel about it. And then they also provided specific input as to how they would work with their students to help them continue to grow with the program.
Now, it seems like, this is a program that there are limited seats for. Is there any talk in the future about developing this program to reach more schools or adding more seats to it?
It's a work in progress. In both of the schools, it's a situation where we have only a few students with who require the Spanish instruction, and so while there might be almost 40 of those students at Fairacres. There's only a few at Desert Hills. So they're able to bring in more of the English-only students, where at Fairacres it's more of the students who are either English language learners or there are fluent English speakers that were English language learners.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'd like to know a little bit, what is the feedback from the parents whose children speak only English, but they want their children to learn that second language to be more competitive? What's that like?
I mean, even at Fairacres, we have English-only families who really would like to be part of the program. But it's a dilemma of not being able to offer it yet to the English-only, because right now our program is filled with English language learners at Fairacres, while at Desert Hills we have more English-only students who can opt into the program.
Interesting, okay. Mari, I'd like to go back a little bit. We talked before the show about the need for bilingual education and dual language programs like this. How far has the educational process gone from all the way, to the beginning of bilingual education to this program right now?
Well, we've definitely made some huge leaps in bilingual education. We know right now, even in the state of New Mexico, not every school offers dual language, and so at least in Las Cruces we've been able to be innovative. We've been able to just grow our programs in bilingual education and to offer parents opportunities for students to become bilingual and biliterate in 2 languages. If we go back to the history, it used to only be English offered for all students, and so today we are much more diverse in our thinking. We understand the value in bilingual education, and as we educate more and more students in understanding the value in truly embracing 2 languages and being more multiculturally oriented, what we're finding is the state is also doing some things. For instance, the offering of the bilingual and biliteracy seal. That's going to be huge because it's going to offer students, some pathways to be able to attain a bilingual seal in their diploma. And so we've come a long way from where we used to be.
So having that bilingual seal on the diploma, what does the student have to do in order to get that?
Well, right now, it is still in the works in terms of defining exactly, the pathways that students are going to need to take in order to earn the bilingual seal. We have some ideas, but decisions are still going to need to be made as far as the district is concerned. We're going to be involving very likely the community, the teachers, and the students to be able to come up with a process that's going to be fair, and that hopefully will open opportunities for every student to be able to acquire that seal on their diploma.
I see. Now it seems like in order to really make this program thrive, you not only need the coordination from parents and the students and along with the teachers, but you also need the coordination at many different levels of the school district to your local and state government, it sounds like.
Right.
Absolutely.
And what I love about this program is it has fostered the integration of art, and so the Doña Ana Arts Council has been a very important piece of this first year in creating a wonderful program. And so we want to thank the Doña Ana Arts Council for joining on this endeavor with us. And just the training that the district provided for these teachers through both the Dual Language and Gomez and Dr. Stone with Multiage. So it's a marriage of dual language and multi-age.
Now, you said it's multi-age, so there's really 2 parts of it. And can a student jump in at 3rd grade and then go through 5th grade and right in the middle of it? Is that possible?
Well, in this case, the way that we started the program, that really is the way you have to go. I mean, students, for instance, if the parents opted in the very first year, some of these students would have to be in, some of those grade levels. So some of them would be completely new, but we can't really stagger it out so that you have each grade level already being there. So yes, like for instance, it would be the first time for some of our third grade students being in the program.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you both very much. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you very much for your time and sharing the program with us, and thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with a teacher's perspective on this program. Welcome back. We are joined now by a multi-age dual language teacher in the Las Cruces Public Schools, Theresa Saenz-Telles. Thank you very much for joining us, Theresa.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to start a little bit to learn a little bit about you. Why did you decide to become a teacher?
Why did I decide to become a teacher? Actually, I come from a family of educators. My father he's now retired, but he taught for 41 years. And I have siblings who are either administrators in the public schools, working in the university setting, and then myself, I'm also a teacher in the public schools. So it was kind of an environment that I grew up in, and I saw a lot of benefit from it, and saw what I myself gained in being growing up in a family of educators. So it was kind of a passion of mine since I can remember, being all the way back from probably high school.
How long have you been a teacher?
I just completed my 17th year of teaching.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
What was the initial interest in being a teacher in this multi-age dual language program?
Actually, when I was asked to participate in this program, at our school, as Ms. Norris and Ms. Rincon mentioned earlier, our community of learners is different from probably most that you'll see in the district, whereas we have very few Spanish speakers. However, we do have the need to service our ELLs, and therefore needed a setting that would provide them the opportunity to learn in both languages. The multi-age setting allows for the students to stay in the classroom and be able to be enriched in both languages all day long, rather than have to go through a pull-out system, which we were kind of running prior to this year. The other teacher that I worked with at my school came to me about a year ago at this time and said, hey, we have this opportunity to do this program, and I wanted to learn about it. We were provided wonderful professional development by our district, and we completed our first year and feel real positive about the outcome of it.
Now, could you share with our audience what school you teach at?
I teach at Desert Hills Elementary.
So what have you seen so far as the impact goes with this program's had on your elementary school?
It's been huge for the students. It has been just amazing. In this year, what I have experienced and what I've been given the opportunity to observe is just watching kids progress, first of all, in your standard subject areas, but furthermore to be enriched in being able to use technology and utilize technology for application of what they've learned. As the ladies mentioned earlier, we did work with Doñana Arts Program to bring in the arts into our classroom. And so what I saw at the end were a bunch of students looking at the standards and really going deeper into their learning and wanting to apply their knowledge, not just by writing a report like maybe we have done in the past, but wanting to create movies, wanting to create presentations, skits, games, and just engaging activities that would really, really get every kid who might be a different kind of learner, say a kinesthetic learner, or just a different kind of learner. So that's probably the greatest observation that I've made this year.
So I mean, when you're talking about incorporating the arts into the syllabus, the students are doing many different projects as far as that goes? Yes.
I think I mentioned before, I think when we talked last time, through the multi-age concept or eyes of a classroom, you want to give the students the opportunity to be able to choose their activities. And so, being that it was my first year and starting out at the beginning of the year, I quickly wanted to set up centers for the kids that incorporated art. And immediately the kids took to it, they fell in love with it, but I found the kids doing a lot of the same kind of artistic applications. And so the beauty of the arts program is that they came in and they showed us how to recycle items. They showed us how to go beyond the pencil and paper of just drawing and considering only that to be art, although that is beautiful, and I think that kids should always express themselves artistically if it is in drawing. But we got a little bit more. I think in this program we were able to dive in deeper and just make deeper and more meaningful connections, and the kids left with just a plethora of ideas of how to express themselves artistically.
Now, how do you incorporate like dual language into that?
Well, what I do is that through our district mandates, we have a certain amount of time that should be devoted to bilingual education or Spanish in this case. And so you always start a day knowing that you have to incorporate a certain amount of time. What I found easy to do was to plan for my lessons thematically, and so therefore I also incorporated the Spanish thematically. So if we were learning about, say in the fall, if we were talking about the seasons or talking about the different vegetables, that's what we were learning also in Spanish. So it's always incorporated into what you're doing. And then I made sure that I gave a specific amount of time for learning the specific standards of Spanish.
Now, you mentioned that the students came up with some pretty creative stuff as far as like the multimedia, I guess, projects that they had to do. What were some of the things they were doing? Well,
some of the things that they were doing is, I remember I think it was around probably December, right before we left for winter break, and one of the standards is to do a how-to. And the students started writing their how-to, and then they decided they wanted to expand on that. So some kids did a PowerPoint presentation, and then they brought in all the items and they went through step by step with the kids, and they created everything, and then they enjoyed, a lot of them did a lot of treats since it was around that time. That was kind of the beginning of it. And usually when we talk about technology, we start at the beginning part, or place, which is a PowerPoint presentation. By the end of the year, the students had progressed. What they were doing is they were reading novels, and they were doing character analysis, and they were actually acting out the parts and recording them and putting them together into a film. And then the last activity that we had, our theme was "Oh, the Places You'll Go." And the kids,
from the Dr. Seuss book.
It is from the Dr. Seuss book, and you know, it is a wonderful book to read, but it has so much rich vocabulary, and the meaning is just, it's very deep if you just read it to a student and don't go into detail what the meaning is behind that. And so the kids wanted, since we had read it for about a month and just really got into it, they wanted to share that experience with others by creating a movie. And so what they did was they created their own talk show. And in their talk show, they made sure their homework for that period of time was to watch other talk shows and see what segments are on talk shows. And so they made sure that they had a cooking segment, they had a segment on how to stay healthy, and it was just amazing because it was all their idea. They recorded the clips, and they put it together as a movie at the end.
Now, you teach 3rd through 5th graders. What are some of the challenges these students are dealing with at that age? Are they different than your typical 3rd grader? Or are they pretty much the same?
Well, you know, it was my first time teaching 5th grade. So I think for me that was a challenge more than it was for the students, just because I'm not used to that age level. And I think what happens many times is that the kids get to 5th grade and they feel like they're the top notch. They're at the top, you know. Everybody, all the other students are kind of looking up to them, and sometimes though, with that, they just being with their own peers, they're just working with each other. I think what made it beautiful in the setting that I was able to be privileged to be in is that those kids saw themselves as being responsible to make sure they're being good role models, but also sharing their wealth of knowledge with the 4th and 3rd graders. So they didn't have time to really say, I'm a 5th grader, you know, I'm cool, or you know, those things that you might sometimes come across. And they just really, they worked as a community. They were always looking to see who's needing help, how can we help this person, and then very many times they were learning from the 3rd and 4th graders, because that's just what happens. It's what naturally happens in the world, and it's what naturally happened in that classroom.
How is parent involvement with this program so far? What are some of the parents' feedback that they're giving you? What are some of the things that they're saying about their students' progression?
You know, the parents have been really happy about it. And I can tell you that we had an opportunity with our partnership with the Doña Ana Arts Council to have a art exhibit night. And that was in April, and the students at our school, I believe, made dolls out of recycled items, and they made music boxes, and I believe the younger class made some kind of project with recycled items like CDs. And I know that the students at Fairacres made musical instruments. And so that night, the two schools came together, and the kids presented to the community. Now, these kids didn't know any of the people that would be coming that night, and it was amazing to see how they were able to speak with such confidence and with such knowledge, and really deep, meaningful knowledge about what they had researched. And the parents were amazed. They were truly amazed.
And we just have about a minute left. I was wondering, do you have, after completing this year, are there some thoughts that you might have for next year about how you want to, maybe add to this program or do something different? Any thoughts on that?
How I would do anything different? Just to continue to build on what we've laid as a foundation, and also I continue to see how I change my mindset about being a facilitator of learner, and watching the kids become active in deciding how they want to present their information, their knowledge. And I think that that's something that I will continue to grow in as a year progresses, and hopefully I can really reach that point, because I think that would be the part that's a little bit uncomfortable as a teacher, is to go ahead and just be that facilitator of learning. But I've seen it work, and I'm just looking forward to being able to do that again this year.
Well, Theresa, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And we want to thank you for joining us. I'm Anthony Moreno. This is Fronteras, a Changing America.